It's great to be with everybody. I don't know who's on and who's not, but we try and do this quarterly, as you know. Just going back to sort of the basics of what we're building. We are just building sort of from the bottom up, and we just listen to users give us feedback. So we appreciate everybody who's using the product. And for the longest time, I was always told brokers don't want to use tech, and I think we've really kind of with you proven that out to be totally not true. It's just that there's not been a lot of great tech built for brokers. And so um, I'll kind of just start off with just kind of what is the agenda, what we're going to talk about on this quarterly update. We'll highlight some of the newer things. We're going to spend the vast majority of the time just talking about an enormous feature we launched, which is the Occupier Rep financial reporting and sort of what's coming very soon, some of the things you guys may know about. And then we'll just have the Q&A. And so as far as what's new, obviously we launched an enormous feature, which is sort of a product in and of itself. We've shipped sort of our initial version of this. We're doing a ton of work already. Really appreciate everybody who's given us lots of feedback, reported that certain things should be this way versus that way. It's sort of the only way to build great software is to just ship something and then listen to sort of how people are using it. And so we'll dive into this specifically, and we'll spend quite a while just walking you through this. I'll go ahead and generate a financial analysis, show everybody sort of where all the sort of why we did things the way we did things, answer any of the questions that you may have about that. But our goal here was just, pretty simple. It seemed to me that going back to my life as a broker, a lot of the financial analysis I was giving, I was either going to a consultant to say, run these numbers, and that was taking days to do sometimes. And have multiple turns and you just want to move quickly. Your clients want something now. Or I was using an Excel file and putting something really kind of, janky in front of my clients. And so we wanted to solve that problem. And we wanted to do it in a way that enabled you to have a completely white labeled, best in class report that really tells the story of the negotiations. It's not just like, hey, here's the financial information now, but here's where we're trending through this financial analysis. And so we'll cover that in a lot of detail. There's some smaller things that we've launched recently. Just want to make sure everybody knows about. Number one was just better tracking of your sales activities. And so I'll just kind of bounce in here. But one of the things you may not know, maybe you do know it if you read the emails, is we now have a log for when the last sales activity you logged was. So you can sort of filter this based on, order of if I want to see the stuff I haven't logged any sort of sales activities in a long time for, make sure I keep those prospects and clients fresh. You can go ahead and do that. And so this screen has become, we've really put a lot of emphasis on this screen so that you can curate it to sort of whatever you want. So just to highlight a couple things you can do here. Number one, everybody, even if you partner with other people, can control the screen they want to see here. And we are adding a whole bunch of different columns that you can insert or remove. And so if I don't care to see, the industry, I can sort of turn that off, or I want to just go ahead and only see the contact emails to generate a CSV, but then I just want to turn those off as well. You can kind of there's a lot more we're going to be adding to this, but phone numbers, whatever you want to do, even number of locations, this screen becomes really dynamic for the various representation types that you might work with. So as you can see here, each of these has a completely different set of sort of what you can sort of sort and filter based on. So yeah, I'll kind of just keep going, but just wanted to point that out as something that we launched recently. And then most recently, also, when you create a sales activity, we've enabled you to go ahead and schedule the next sales activity as a reminder. So if I was going to come into any prospect, I can go ahead and log a sales activity, and maybe I made a phone call, maybe I called Jason, but I left a voice message. And so I might just leave a note about that, go ahead and save and schedule the next one. We've already infilled the information. And so you might just say, you know what, I want to reach out to him again in a week. Obviously, we'll text you that reminder if you want. We'll email it to you if you want, but just go ahead and click save. And now you've just gotten it out of the way. You don't need to go create a separate reminder from your sales activity, just making it easier, less clicks, more efficiency. be able to really move into that. So I think most of the people are at least aware of this feature that we just launched. We're extremely excited by the feedback we've already heard from it. Thank you for those who have said your clients love it. This is by far, so many of our users are focused in on tenant rep and occupier rep. And so this was just an enormous lift for us. It took us a pretty significant amount of time. So I thought I would just walk you through how to do it. And sort of just point out some of the nuances around how to do some things. We've seen some behaviors that we've realized we need to make some of these things more intuitive. And so when you create an occupier rep deal, and so I think everybody here knows you can create as many deals as you want for a single, what we call account. And so if I wanted to see, all the deals I'm working on with Enaia, you can really run a sort of multi-market account here, track all that information, move those deals from engaged all the way to closed. But let's say I was working on this one deal. I'm now able to move it to tours, in which case I can then log the tour. And we had heard a ton of feedback. I knew this personally just from my own business, where if you're going on a lot of different tours, sometimes it's hard to forget what you've seen. It's also, I think, more importantly, from the broker's point of view, frustrating where your clients don't even realize everything you've showed them. It always was frustrating for me to leave a tour and have your client just say, well, what's next? And you've gone on like 8 tours with them, and every single tour, they're like, what else is out there? And so this is your way of really tracking that information, where I can just click log tour, say what the date of that tour is, put in stop number 1, the address, put in the unit number, what the size of that is, put in who the landlord rep contact is, or who the broker is, and then just add the second one, the third one, the fourth one for that whole stop. Pretty soon, when you click save, you'll see a pop-up that says, do you want to email all these people with what time they should meet you there? So you can kill the process of having to go email multiple people. But there's a couple things worth pointing out here too. Number one is sometimes you're going to see multiple floors, you're going to see different units, and there's kind of 2 forks there. One would be, hey, we're seeing the 3rd and the 4th floor because they're taking, our clients interested in taking both of those. The other would be they're interested in one of the units in the property, but there's another unit, and it's not that they're taking both, it's that they might take this one or they might take this one. So go ahead and just click add alternative property, alternative options, and you'll see here, this is just going to be option 1 versus option 2. And when you go ahead and click save, you'll see that there's a tour created for that, of what you're seeing, what time you're seeing it, who are those tenant reps or those landlord reps that we're going to see. And then once you take that from the touring phase to the proposal stage, it's going to say, do you want to start managing your proposals and lease negotiations here? So if you click this, which I won't do here, I'll just show you what it looks like fully built out. You're now going to see a sort of a historical log of everything that's happening with this transaction. So you can see here, we had tour number 2 on August 8th. We saw these properties. There's going to be a 3rd tour up here. There's going to be a 4th tour. And this is sort of a fully built out model of what I'm going to show you. But as you add those proposals that you're trading back and forth, you're going to see click negotiation analysis and really see kind of a war room of everything you're negotiating with. So everything we toured is going to be here under consideration. You can move these and say, hey, they're no longer looking at this. Let's just move it from consideration, which is going to place it down here. So you've got a log of everything you've seen. You can bring those back to life if you want, move them to consideration, start adding negotiations to that. And then anything we've negotiated, if I wanted to take 205th and remove it from negotiations, it's going to have its own sort of separate distinction as well, because you could always bring those negotiations back to life. So if we took that and wanted to bring that back to what we're negotiating, you can see here when I come into our active negotiations that everything is here. And so the way to sort of begin this process, I wanted to just kind of quickly explain that. The first time so let's say at 6646 East Lovers Lane, I was going to start negotiating here. The first thing we prompt you to do is add the asking terms. And there's kind of a specific reason for that, which is what it's going to do is in the report that we'll generate, and I'll get to that in a second, it's going to anchor that transaction at sort of the highest point that this deal will likely be priced at, if you will. And so I'm just going to remove that for now just to show you what I mean by that. But when you actually go to the report for your client and you preview that, when you get to this page of the report right here, so there's two options we're negotiating with. We're negotiating at 195 Broadway. We're also negotiating at 205th. You can see here, here's the asking terms. I strongly recommend when you input the numbers to put in all of the expenses your client is likely to be dealing with here. Their moving costs, their IT and cabling costs. If you know those, it doesn't matter if you don't. But I think it makes brokers look really good to ask your clients, like, what are you budgeting here? Or for you as a broker to know, our clients typically pay about X per square foot for IT cabling. We've made those assumptions in here. I think it's going to make you look really good, but it's also going to anchor that transaction to be as high as possible so that as we tell the story of this negotiation throughout the whole process, you're seeing those landlord numbers come down. We're seeing that net effective rent delta come down. And our goal here, just based on my own experience, is to make sure that your clients hit a certain point where they realize we're like $1 a foot apart here. Let's just do the deal and help you close these transactions so that the deals get emotional when you're 3-4 rounds in, you're fighting over elevator rights and all the things that at the end of the day, are they important? Depends on the elevator rights, I guess. But if you're just fighting for how many hours can they use the freight elevator or those types of things, we're missing the bigger picture here. And so keeping sort of the eye on the prize of a closed deal is really kind of what our goal is here. And you start to really tell the story of sort of where we were, where we are now, how we close this. And so you can see here, this is just the sort of summary cost analysis of the transaction. What are the occupancy costs? What are the sort of core terms here? And then as we move through this, here's these very specific cash flow analyses. You can call this sort of the assumptions page of just everything we're modeling in the transaction. So there's some things we're doing some more work on with this stuff, but this gives you an idea of sort of everything that's input there. So I'm just going to run an analysis and make sense out of this. So let's just add a new property. So if I click this, maybe we're going to go ahead and say we could add the asking terms, but I'll just add an actual proposal. So maybe we drafted an initial proposal that we're sending out. So we've got this named by default as initial proposal. You can rename that if you want. We're going to put in, this is going to assume the information of what you toured is correct, just to save you the input. So we're touring unit 400, or we're sending a proposal out for unit 400, which is 22,000 feet. It's a full service gross deal or a triple net deal or a modified gross deal. And then when's the commencement date that we're estimating? Sometimes you know it, but sometimes you're just making assumptions of it. And so let's say it was a 10-year deal with 6 months of free rent. That's outside the term. And so we'll say it's 126 months. And now we're getting to free rent. We're creating the free rent periods for this transaction. And a normal sort of arm's length transaction, we might just say, hey, there's 6 months free of 100% of the base rent. And is it the base rent only or the base rent plus the recoveries? Really kind of up for you to decide. So let's just say it's the base rent only. And let's just say that the rent there is $40 a foot. So I just wanted to pop up the analysis so that it shows, because you can add as many free rent periods as you want. You can put in free rent on a monthly basis, or maybe it's just a fixed amount that in month 50, they're getting $20,000 in free rent or whatever it might be. And so you can create as many of those as you want. You can stagger that. You can say, hey, there's 9 months at 50% rent. So if we said there's 6 months at 50% rent, and then after that, there's a new base rent period of, let's just make this, you could kind of say there's a new base rent period for another 6 months at, just call it 4 months at 100% of the base rent. Again, there's just a lot of scenarios you can play out here. I'll get into our AI piece that will be able to figure all of this out in seconds, but I wanted to point out how dynamic you can run these numbers, because the more complex it gets, the more the Excel model becomes really just kind of complex and likely to have inaccuracies. So we put in that there's a $40 base rent. I was in New York as a broker where, oftentimes in month 61, there's also a sort of call it a 10% increase midterm. You can just go ahead and create a new base rent period to increase that $4 a foot. Again, dollar per square foot per year, dollar per square foot per month. What's the or total amount? Whatever your proposals are going to say, we can pretty much model that pretty efficiently. And then rent escalations. So as you can imagine, there's also multiple ways this can go. Let's just say there's a 3% fixed increase in the base rent because we're using a percentage basis. But if it's, hey, every year it's just $1,000 more, whatever it is, you could put in a total amount, whatever you want to sort of model there. There's a lot of different flexible ways of modeling this information. So it could be a one-time escalation, it could be annual, and then percentage rents for any of you retail brokers can model those assumptions as well, which is the break period and all these different inputs that would go into that. So that's just the rent side of it. Now we're getting to the TI and any sort of CapEx and allowance. What are sort of the upfront costs that are associated with this, either on the landlord's perspective or on the occupier's perspective? So let's say we were getting $75 a foot in an allowance and it's a turnkey build. So it's, we'll model that at 75 and 75, but maybe you're working with a project manager who says, it's actually going to be $90 a foot. So the tenant's going to have to pay for the delta of what between the allowance. By the way, shout out to Brian for helping us with this. You can also, let's say you got an allowance of $50 a foot or 75 a foot, but the expense is $50 a foot. So you now have the potential to have a rent credit for that. So when the allowance exceeds the expense, you can either elect to say apply that as a rent credit, which will then factor in additional free rent, or you're forfeiting that excess allowance, which I can't imagine many people are going to model that, but that is one of the options you can do here. So then there's just additional CapEx and allowance items. What are the things the tenant's going to be paying for, as well as what are are there any allowances for those things? This is what I was pointing out. When you add the asking terms, highly recommend adding moving costs if it's not a renewal, the IT cabling costs, the FF&E, anything you think the tenant's going to be responsible for, so that when you give them these documents, one, you're showing them the actual analysis of what they're really going to be coming out of pocket for as a result of this real estate decision. But you're also just looking really good, in my opinion. And I think as you store more and more of these within your Enaia, you're going to know pretty confidently, we typically see this in our market for what a moving cost is per square foot, or what cabling and furniture are. And so, the capacity to sort of model that from the very start not only makes you look good, but I think it also produces a more accurate analysis. So here I would say, maybe FF&E, we're asking for a furniture allowance, but we think it's going to be $5 a foot, and the landlord's willing to give us $3 a foot. There's cabling costs, moving costs, any sort of signage or anything like that that's going to be associated with this relocation or renewal. You can model that out here. So I'll not model a whole bunch of those, but, and actually let me go back to details here. Under premises, let's say this is an office deal, there's a loss factor. You can go ahead and input the loss factor. Maybe it's 18%. And now you can see here, we have the ability to put in to understand the total amount as and then analyze this on a rentable or a usable basis. So lastly, just going to the expenses, what are the operating expenses? I think I said this was a full service gross deal. So if I said operating expenses here are full service gross, when I first input that, the recovery method is going to default to gross. Is it recoverable with an expense stop? So maybe there's $10 a foot in OpEx and the expense stop is $10 a foot. So now that is going to grow 3%. Your client is going to be responsible for paying the increases of that. That's going to be modeled into the transaction. And we can put in real estate taxes. These are the things that a landlord rep's going to tell you, here's what our expenses are for this base year, whatever it is. Again, we can also model that as net. So that's going to increase the tenant cost pretty significantly. And oops, there we go. And you'll see those really impact the numbers quite a bit. So I'll move that back to there, input that. And then parking expenses, there's a lot of optionality there. Are you getting credits for the parking? How many stalls? You could create multiple expenses of covered parking versus sort of general parking or executive parking. And then the last bit are other categories just for sort of those one-off events of, hey, are we amortizing more TI into this deal? And so, we're amortizing an extra $20 a foot throughout the whole term at an interest rate of 7%. And so once we go ahead and save this, we now have that third option here. We can always come in, see that information. And when I go back to reporting, the reporting will be updated in real time so that if I just want to go ahead and send this out to my client, I can quickly see the report. It's always worth mentioning on these demos that the Enaia logo here is non-existent. I only see this because that's the company I work at. You will see your logo on there. And by the way, if we ever use the wrong logo, we don't hear this too much, but if we ever do, you can email us. We can add the right logo there. And so we've got a cover page. You can see that the margins of this totally changed to add a third scenario from the one I previously sent you. So we're seeing what the year one occupancy costs are. We're seeing what the NPV of these deals are. We're seeing this on a total amount versus per square foot basis. This is just sort of the general summary of what their out-of-pocket costs are going to be. And then we're moving into scenario one at 195 Broadway. Here's where we're at with those negotiations. We just started our 6646 East Lovers Lane for unit 400 here. We can see what that is. As we add more options, we're going to start to see this look more like a story we can tell as to sort of where we're moving here. And then you'll see the most updated financial analyses. We are updating this so that when you go to generate the report, which you can see here, you can say, hey, show me multiple other cash flow analyses that we've done. And this just becomes the PDF that you send your clients. So in time, we'll enable this to be on legal paper as well. There's a few of you that have asked about that. But I anticipate most people just to look at this over their screens. And so hopefully it's fine as it is for now. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the bulk of this feature. It's an enormous product and feature in and of itself, and we'll continue to make it a lot better. I don't know if there's any questions yet, Justin, about this that have come through, but if there's any questions, I do want to stop here before the general Q&A and just see what questions somebody might have about this.
There was nothing specific, David, but I did get a couple of messages just asking if they wanted to see it specifically with their information, how could they set up time with one of us to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Like to be able to walk through the feature with one of us.
Yeah, perfect. So that's going to be on the last slide, but you can always email me at david@enaia.co, and I'm happy to hop on a demo and just walk you through this. Even let's pull up the proposals and start creating them just, together. I'm happy to do that anytime. Perfect. So getting to sort of what's next, which is kind of the next sort of phase of this. Some of you have seen this, but and we're really just about done with this, but everything I just did, well, it's probably saved you a ton of time versus going to Excel and then having to design it and all that. Everything I just did takes a good amount of time still. And so that's why I'm going to click into a test server here, but pretty soon you're just going to be able to take any of your proposals and just drag those from your email and just have the AI fully run those financial analyses. The only reason we haven't shipped this yet is actually because we want to have a significant review step here. And so what I mean by that is as soon as you add that proposal, you're then going to be able to literally see the document rendered in the application. And then you click the terms that we have there and it just highlights it in the document for sort of where that exists. And so we are in the sort of 11th hour of doing that. I anticipate we'll have that relatively soon. But then this will save you a ton of time. And then the next iteration of that is going to be, if you have your email integrated with Enaia, for there to be some sort of ambient detection that says, hey, we see you sent a proposal. Either do you want us to create a deal for that, or we've created that and we've run the numbers for you and it's already there for you to review. Just go ahead and sign off on it, confirm, and it'd be fully done. So the time savings, right? All input is sort of error. We try and do as much as we can to make sure you don't have to type as much of your information into the system. How can we really be supporting you with that is kind of the next phase of this. So you can see here, this just ran that, which is a deal of this size, a lease duration of X. Here's the rent and base rent schedule and the free rent, and kind of move all the way through to the cost and recoveries. There's $1 a foot in TI, and there's insurance costs of 9 cents a foot, management fees, OpEx, taxes. All of this is just extracted from those documents. And it also a pretty enormous lift because, as you may know, there's a lot of different versions of these things that get sent out, and sometimes they're PDFs, sometimes they're Word documents, sometimes they're redlined, multiple times. And we've really been able to train Enaia to be able to detect all of that. And so it's been really incredible to see. I'm really excited about shipping that. But that is kind of the next sort of major release of this feature, is just enabling you to just drop your files in, update this information, and quickly go send this to your clients, so that you're just impressing them with the speed in which you're doing things, as well as the thoroughness and the quality of the design. So yeah, that's the basic. I wanted to just kind of show you that. I'm certainly happy to hop on a demo anytime. And so we won't take the full hour for this, just to be mindful of everybody's time, but I did want to just show everybody this, and we're sort of more than happy to book a demo anytime. So I think all of our users know we sort of intentionally want to be as close to you as possible. So you can always email us, whether it's Justin or me or anybody else on our team, to hop on a demo, ask any questions. And so are there any questions that we should be addressing now, Justin?
Yeah, we got a question from Mark asking about sublease recovery.
It's actually a great question. I believe, Mark, what you're talking about is if you're running the analyses for a sub-landlord deal that you're representing the sub-landlord, are you saying, do we have inputs yet for you to weigh the revenue of that against what the sub-landlord's expense is? We have not done that yet, but that is something we're working towards right now. We have a ton of people running their sub-landlord agencies on the platform. So yeah, we should connect about that, because I'd love your insight into that. And just want to make sure the existing design we have is kind of how you'd want to see that. But it is almost like two separate models that you then sort of measure against each other, how we've designed that to date. So I would say shoot me an email about that, because we're working towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've emailed David or myself before, you understand that these are not dummy email addresses. You're actually going to get us, and we're always happy to jump on with our users. So Michael asks, can you use it to compare offers on the agency side?
Can you use it to compare offers? I'm trying to understand what the use case there is for, like, two separate deals that are for the same availability. Is that what you're asking, Michael?
We may have to wait to see a response on that one.
Yeah.
But I did get a message too, which you actually have on the slide. So we had teased in the emails leading up to this webinar how to get free Enaia. So do you want to just hit that, and then we'll see if Michael has a follow-up, or if he would just like to email us too.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming, but we are now launching a referral platform. And so anytime you refer a broker, just today, in a few days, probably you'll see a referral button in the product. It's not super prominent. We don't think it's what you want to see most of the time, but there will be something where you can just refer somebody. We keep a log of that will automatically, when they subscribe, give you a free month, and then that user will also get a free month. And so if you want to get free Enaia for a year, just refer 12 people, and obviously it means the world to us. We're sort of growing this thing one broker at a time. And so anytime we get an opportunity to be referred, we jump on it. It's our most 80% of our users come through referrals. And so it means a ton. I'm not sure if Michael responded or if there's any other questions.
Yeah, you followed up. So he was asking about offers. Can you use it to compare offers on the agency side? Like if we were trying to compare two deals on the same space when we represent the landlord.
So great question. Let me go back to the product. So if I'm representing a landlord and, oops, oh, I'm in the test server, that's why. If I'm in landlord rep and I've got 195 Broadway here, and let's say I go to generate that report, and so we would just go to the account. So this would be a deal. We would just go to the account, and I could just preview this really quickly. Or I could, here, I'll just generate the actual report, or I'll just preview this. So when we see the actual deals, you can cross compare those net effective rents with one another already when you run those numbers. So in that sense, you can do it on a pure net effective rent basis of just sort of the bottom line numbers and what the return is. I'd be curious in talking with you more about maybe a larger feature for the future of how you're thinking about that, if that answers your question. I mean, this is probably the most common way of just saying how much money is my client making on this deal versus this deal. Having said that, sometimes that deal is going to be a 5-year deal versus a 10-year deal or whatever. And so there's maybe some ideas we haven't thought about. So I'd love to know what you're trying to accomplish there and what would make you look really good in that analysis. Because there's probably some UI and graphs, et cetera, that we can probably support that with.
David, that is what we have on questions. So I'll leave it to you to wrap it up.
Cool. Yeah, mostly just thank you. Again, I think everybody here knows we try and do this just because it's, we try and just get users together and as, to the degree that we can. We have asked a bunch of people, like, do you want to be on the Zoom seeing other users? And people have kind of said no. So apologize for the lack of quick responses and engagement, but yeah, I guess, really just appreciate everybody. When I set out to build this company, it was a total experiment of, do brokers really want to use technology? And I felt like I did. And so it means a lot. I guess the last thing, just again, selfish request would be, like I said, please keep the referrals coming. If there's users you think would benefit from using Enaia, as well as we do have a G2 page. Some of this is pretty meaningful, actually, as I've learned in building a platform and as we've hired Justin, is how important that stuff is. So if you Google G2 and Enaia, it would mean a lot to us if you went in and added a G2 review. So outside of that, I think that's basically it. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So really appreciate it and hope to talk to you soon. And really, we'll talk next quarter with our next update. And hopefully we'll have some of these AI things in place before then. And yeah, really appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Justin.